let's just give a second. See if any attendees jump in.
Great. It says 9, so looks like there's some.
Yeah, we have one attendee, Diana Palladino.
Okay, great.
Well, now we're getting a couple more. Hold on.
I'm not going to call the meeting to order quite yet.
Yeah.
Tell me when you're ready, Brian, and we'll
Oh,
go.
we're ready. We can go. I was just trying to see how many people were coming in.
Alrighty, great. So I'm going to call to order the Common Council Ordinance regular meeting. Today is August 20th, 2024. It is 7:07. We're running just a little bit late because we needed to get a quorum. Sitting with us this evening are Heather Dunn, Josh Goldstein, Nora Najelski-Eitner, and Johan Lopez. What we're going to do first is public comment. So Brian, is there anybody who has their hand raised to make a comment for this evening?
Yeah, so yes, there are. For the record, I received no emails in advance of this meeting, so there are no public comments that need to be read that were handwritten or emailed. Diana Palladino, I'm going to allow her to speak in a second. Diana, if you could unmute yourself, lower your hand, just give your full name and address, and welcome, and go ahead.
Of course, thank you. Diana Palladino Christopher, 1 Naples Avenue. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. I've been appointed by my party as the incoming Norwalk Republican Register of Voters, and I will officially take office on January 7th, 2025, after my appearance on the ballot this November. I'm excited about the opportunity to contribute to our community in a meaningful way. In the meantime, I'm hopeful for the opportunity to act as Brian Smith's designee on the Reapportionment Advisory Committee, representing as the minority party. This would ensure that both parties have an ex officio member present for upcoming discussions. I have attended the discussions to date in a non-panel member capacity, but I am hopeful with your approval tonight of the Ordinance Committee to have official panel access at future meetings moving forward. I look forward to the continued conversations of the Reapportionment Committee and to offering my perspective on the options presented. I thank you for your time, and I'm eager to meet all of you in my official capacity in January. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Diana.
Anybody
Lisa,
else?
just for the record, Ken Dorenzo is also a member of the Reapportionment Advisory Committee. He is in as an attendee as well. Welcome. And we also have a Common Council member, Nicole Eady, is on as an attendee. She's attending as well. I just wanted to make sure that we all...
Everybody was recognized.
Hold on one second. Yeah, exactly. So if anyone else has any comments to make in the public comment section, please raise your hand right now. Otherwise, we're going to close public comment.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Brian, Nicole
Yes.
is a Common Council member. She has a right to be a panelist at any council meeting she wants.
Sure, I'll promote her.
So I don't know why she's an attendee. I mean, unless she wants to be, but
Yeah,
I just promoted her.
Great, thank you. And so we'll note that in the minutes that she joined us, and when she shows up.
There she is.
Hi, Nicole.
Right. So now we have 2 attendees, and they're both members of the Norwalk Advisory Reapportionment Committee, and that's Diana and Ken.
Great.
Well,
Great.
soon to be Diana. So
right, just gonna say, let's be very careful there. She's not yet.
yeah,
Right.
Soon to be.
And Nicole, just to mention to you, Common Council members can join any committee meeting, and they also can ask questions or make comments as you're interested. We usually let the committee members go first with their questions, but if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask at the end. Okay, so the next matter of business is the acceptance of the minutes. Do I have a motion to accept the July 16th, 2024 regular meeting minutes? Thank you, Johan. They're very short. So does anybody...
You want me to put them up?
I don't think we have to put them up. Does anybody have any changes or modifications? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as filed, please raise your hand. Heather does not have her hand up. Does that mean that you're abstaining, Heather? Or, yeah, where's Heather?
Yes, I was not at the meeting.
Okay, so you're abstaining. Okay, that's what I thought you were doing. All right, so there we have that done. All right, so the next order of business is to discuss and vote on revisions to the ordinance establishing an advisory committee for the reapportionment of common council voting districts. And Brian, do you want to just pop that up and just briefly let people know what we're talking about this evening? And then
Sure.
we can take a look.
Okay. So let me just first start by explaining why we're here. So Attorney Mennick and my sisters have, reviewed the document. We met with committee members. Attorney Mennick did. And the goal was to provide additional time to deal with the logistical issues of not having the Republican registrar participating up until hopefully soon, when Diana will be appointed by the Republicans. We want to be the whole idea was to be fair. We want the Republicans to be represented on the Reapportionment Advisory Committee. That was the intent, the safety valve for participation allows the president of the Common Council to consult with either party chair to select a representative, which is what happened here. And obviously, Diana just mentioned that she's on the ballot and would officially be the registrar starting in January. But obviously, we're under a time crunch. Part of these amendments is to extend the time within which the Reapportionment Advisory Committee has to approve a plan. And also to allow the Republican registrar or the designee, Diana, to join in on the conversation officially so that both parties can have a say in the plan that is essentially put forward for eventually approval by the Common Council. So I will put it up now after that explanation.
We're just making a couple of small changes to make this more flexible.
Yeah, so in section 925, there was just one minor change. Districts was added. There are no changes in 926. 927 we'll come back to. You can see that there are some changes there. 928, there are no changes at all. I'm sorry, 928, excuse me, there is a change. It's at the bottom. We moved the transition provision becomes subsection G. That's just to keep the formatting. And it also extends out to 120 days that the Reapportionment Advisory Committee shall file the report to the Common Council. It's 120 days. And that gives until October 9th, as opposed to September 9th, which was going to be tight, especially in light of the issues that we were having with the Republican registrar participating. The time frame, nothing changed in 929. Attorney Mennick was just identifying that the Common Council has 45 days after receipt of the report to vote. That would be November 23rd. There are no changes to section 930, and there's no changes to section 931. So again, very minor changes, except for 927. 928, we just went over. That's the change that extends it out to 120 days instead of 90, giving the advisory committee an extra 30 days. And so the real changes, the bigger changes, as you'll see, are in section 927, which are up on your screen now. And for everyone's convenience, they're redlined, but they're also highlighted in yellow, so it stands out. And as you can see in subsection B, under ex officio non-voting members, the registrar of voters or a designee shall serve as ex officio non-voting members of the Reapportionment Advisory Committee. And so that would allow Diana, if this amendment is approved and sent to public hearing, then approved by the Common Council, that would allow Diana to serve as the designee, as the Republican Registrar of Voters designee for the remainder of the time that the Apportionment Readvisory Committee is doing their duty and completing the report. Again, we already have a chair and a vice chair of this committee, but this language was not included in the original version. And just because this committee will be coming back again at some point, we wanted to make clear that there needs to be a chair and a vice chair. And we explained the process for doing that. Subsection E talks about that the committee shall keep records and post notices of the meetings and agendas required by law of any committee, let alone this one, that there has to be minority representation on the committee. And that's pursuant to state law and also our charter, which is identified here, that the committee will comply with the requirements of the charter, ordinance, and any rules as it pertains to public access, to allow the public to attend these meetings and to comment at the appropriate time. It talks about the frequency of the meetings, which is in subsection H. And then the transition provision indicates that the reapportionment advisory committee shall be approved by the common council not later than 120 days following the appointment of the committee. If the registrar fails to designate the ex officio non-voting members, the deputy registrar may serve, or the president of the common council, following consultation with the chair of the political party of the registrar who does not serve or appoint a designee, shall appoint a representative. Again, this is just a safety valve. What happened during this time was not something that could be anticipated. And so obviously we want all the parties to be involved, all the political parties to be involved. So this subsection I transition provision is to allow the Republican chair of the political party, Fred Wilms, to work with Darlene Young, president of the Common Council, to select a designee, which would be Diana, who appeared here tonight and spoke briefly. And so that is these are the proposed revisions that are being recommended here tonight to allow additional time for the Reapportionment Advisory Committee to complete their analysis and complete their report, which would then also allow Diana, in that scenario, to be officially an ex officio member and participate, and then they can complete their report, provide it to the Common Council, and then gives the Common Council time within which to determine whether they're going to approve or disapprove the plan that's proposed.
So that's it. So I see that Nora's got her hand up. I was just going to ask anybody else who has a question or a comment to raise their hand. So Nora, if you would like to go first.
Thank you. And I just wanted to affirm that the addition of the minority representation requirements and these other standard requirements regarding public hearings, et cetera, this is all stuff that was certainly the minority representation. The composition of the current committee meets those standards. This is not new. We are not changing anything. There was just some back and forth with Attorney Bednick as to whether our charter properly currently guarantees that all of this language is covered by the charter, or whether we need to do it individually in each ordinance related to each committee. We've decided for sort of abundance of caution to do it. But I just want to be very clear. I don't want anyone to be under the impression that we are changing the composition of the committee, that the original committee did not fully represent the minority, meet our minority representation. All of that is already in there. So I just didn't want there to be any confusion on that.
No, thank you, Nora. That's
Thanks for making that
a good
clear.
explanation. Very
No,
clear.
it really is. We just decided to put the whole kitchen sink in there because sometimes new committees don't know exactly how to organize themselves. And so we thought that it's nice to have a roadmap for them. So even though you could go to the charter for it, it's just easier to find it in the ordinance. Other questions or comments from the committee before we vote to take this to public hearing? So for those of you committee members who weren't here before, we're going to have a special meeting. Josh, I'll take you in 1 second while I'm finishing this thought. On September 3rd at 6 p.m., we're going to have a special ordinance committee meeting for the public hearing. So when we vote to take this to public hearing, that public hearing will be held on September 3rd. Also at that meeting, we're going to make good use of the time. If I'm going to take you guys your time up, we're also going to have a second draft of the complete streets for the committee at that time. So if everybody would please just calendar that, that would be really helpful. We will have our regular meeting in September as well. So we're having an extra meeting on September 3rd, 6 p.m. Thank you. So Josh.
And just so everyone understands the timeline, if the committee tonight just determines to send this to public hearing on September 3rd, if it's voted on at the September 3rd public hearing, be approved to send to Common Council, it would be able to get on the September 10th Common Council agenda. So that was the thought process. Also wanted to do it after the Labor Day weekend, so that anyone who wanted to participate could participate. So that was the process of trying to get as much participation as possible while also getting this done as soon as possible so that Diana can join and participate in the process.
Thanks for filling that in, Brian. That's exactly what I should have said. Josh, you've got your hand up.
All I thank you. I just wanted to just know, and by the way, of course, I have zero problem with Diana being the designee or anything like that. But I just wanted to make sure that we're on track timing wise so that this is, what needs to happen happens, in a timely manner. And that way, any changes that need to be made are done with enough time for all the registrars of voters to do what they need to do. Because right now, this is now, I think either the first or the second sort of delay and change to this process. And I think there was just a delay in getting the committee going in the first place. And I just want to make sure that doesn't become a consistent pattern.
Right. I think we all want to avoid that. So that's why we're having these expedited meetings to really set a fire underneath this process so that we can meet the state deadlines for getting these new maps in place.
Right, and
Great.
and just so everyone's clear, it's I believe it's March would be the drop dead deadline to provide the information to the state, because it has to be, I believe, 90 days prior to any election or primary. So we're basing it off of the primary, which would be in June. So we're moving it back to March. Based on the timeline that we have right now, the Reapportionment Advisory Committee would have until October 9th to complete their analysis and provide a report to the Common Council. Common Council would have 45 days until approximately November 23rd to approve or disapprove. If they approve, then that gives a window of, it looks like a little bit, approximately a little bit less than 4 months to get everything in motion. So I think we're giving ourselves a good amount of time. Attorney Mednick seemed confident in that time, and Nora's raising her hand, so I'll let other people speak.
No, I just wanted to add to what Brian said. I've spoken to Attorney Mednick about this. He has spoken to the Secretary of State's office. This is a fine timeline. Again, given particularly the incredible importance of making sure that the Republican Registrar's Office can participate. So, that has all been double checked, and I feel confident that we can get, move forward now with a solution. So I appreciate, Lisa, your flexibility in having the committee meet in a way to try to get this done as quickly as possible.
And also importantly, Nora it popped into my mind when Nora was talking right there, that importantly, we want to also make sure that the Readvisory Apportionment Committee wants to make sure that they have the public hearing after the Republican Registrar's designee, Diana, is appointed, so that she has the ability to participate formally as an ex officio member at any meetings, including the public hearing, because you have to have at least one public hearing prior to the report being completed and submitted to Common Council. Diana's raising her hand, Lisa.
Well, let's.
And so,
as a courtesy, we don't usually, Diana probably knows this, as a courtesy, we don't usually take comments, but if there is something she would like to have clarified, let's just give her a chance to ask the question.
I brought in Diana again to give her the ability to participate right now again, because obviously this is it's a different scenario than most. Please, Diana, go ahead.
And I really appreciate that. All I did want to say, and I should have said it in my initial statement, is I do appreciate, and I know that you all had the full intention to include the minority party as well. And given Brian's health matters, I really do appreciate you guys coming to the table today and allowing for me potentially to have this opportunity to be the designee. But I did want to just make mention that I do recognize that you guys from the start did have that intention, and that language was in there. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making that.
Thank you, Diana.
Appreciate that. So does any other Common Council member have a question or concern? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to take this to public hearing on Tuesday, September 3rd at 6 p.m. Heather, are you asking a question or making the motion?
Making the motion.
Oh, thank you very much. So all in favor of moving this to the September 3rd meeting for a public hearing? It appears to be unanimous. Okay, great.
Yep.
All righty. So that is the close of that matter. Our next matter is to discuss the vape shop proposed ordinance following a presentation. So we don't have, just to lay the, oh, Josh, you've got your hand up. Is there a comment that you want to make about the other matter?
Nope, just left it up too late.
Okay, no worries. All right, so now we're moving on to the discussing the vape shop situation. So this has been something that has been definitely on Ms. Nojelski-Eitner's mind as well as mine. This has been a continuing matter that we read about in the newspaper from time to time, pretty disturbing situation. So we have had a meeting with the chief and also with Mr. Kleppen earlier this month, just to talk about, what it is that we as a city could do to address some of these concerns. So I asked the chief and Steve to join us this evening. I'm going to have the chief kind of give us a little bit of a lay of the land about what's going on in the vape shop world. And then maybe he has he's got one idea that he has about something we could maybe consider to address. And then we wanted to have Mr. Kleppen also speak about what the P&Z regulations allow and some proposed changes there. So Chief, I'm going to turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you, Councilwoman Shanahan. Good evening, everyone. Yes, to Councilwoman Shanahan's point, as you've read in the newspaper, since the legalization of adult use cannabis in 2020, not only the city of Norwalk, but the whole state of Connecticut has seen an increased growth of smoke shops and vape shops in their communities, and Norwalk is not immune to that. We're up to over probably 22 at this point by our latest count of commercial industries, establishments, I should say, that specialize in the sale of vaping products or other vaping paraphernalia, edibles that are high in THC. So as a result of that, our special services division for the past several years has been investigating the illegal sales of marijuana, cannabis, and high THC illegal products from these establishments. And we're up to over 14 successful investigations over the past 3 years where undercover officers go in there and we're able to successfully purchase cannabis right over the counter from these vape shops and other illegal THC products. So in cooperation with consumer protection, when we do take action and enforcement action on these shops, they always come with us, and they have been helpful in identifying several products that are labeled as what most people think are as safe, but they are not due to their packaging because of the THC count in them, because there's a fine line between legal and illegal THC counts in products that are being sold. So it's been a very difficult way to enforce, and we've seen a lot of recidivism in some of the establishments that we have taken action on. And my experience is going the criminal justice angle has not been enough, just due to the fact that the selling of marijuana, selling of these products is still not a high enforcement priority for many courts, Connecticut. So we've seen the shop owners continue this because it's a very profitable operation for them. The mindset in Connecticut is that cannabis is legal for everyone. It's not. It's adult use cannabis, and there's certain restrictions and how you purchase that and how you consume that and how you store that. And there's been a lot of legislative procedures put forth in the state on how that is done. So what they've done is they've, shall I say, capitalized in a capitalistic system to take advantage of these cracks in the system and sell marijuana away from the legalized cannabis dispensaries. Currently, the city of Norwalk has 2. There's a third one being under construction right now on Connecticut Avenue. And in internal discussions with Lisa and other members of the board and Steve and Brian, there was a similar problem in the city of Norwalk probably 20 to 25 years ago with its massage parlors. Massage parlors, as you know, offer a legitimate service. There is a significant problem in this city with human trafficking and prostitution. An effective way of combating this is that we internally license these massage parlors within the city, and we made the owner and the manager get licenses, and the employees who work there get licensed, because they were doing a public health service by providing massages. So it gave us the power to regulate them internally within the city. Currently, there's no oversight to close any of these smoke shops on the state level or take punitive or suspension action against them. such in a case as with like a liquor store or a bar that sells illegal sales or to underage. We could do a criminal investigation on them, but the Board of Consumer Protection Liquor Division can take civil fines against them, could suspend them, could fine them, could close their shop, can immediately withdraw their license, which is, we have found a much more effective way of handling these violations than the traditional criminal justice system. So these discussions have led to possible new ordinance or new procedure being set forth in the city of Norwalk, where we sort of copy what we've done with the massage parlors to deter prostitution. And our goal with this would be to deter illegal cannabis sales in smoke shops and to deter illegal high THC sales in gummies and other products which are harmful. It is a ongoing and pressing public safety issue, and we do believe that it is definitely a health issue. And if we were to develop this ordinance, it would give us internally within the city of Norwalk a way of addressing these owners and their ability to conduct a legal business and to address the bad actors in the city. We're not saying that everyone is doing this, but there are shops that we have identified that are doing this, and they're still open. So a lot of times when we arrest a clerk, it's not the owner. It's just a clerk that gets arrested on a misdemeanor crime, and they get dismissed and they just replace them. And then the operation is still ongoing because there's profit to be made. And it was similar as we saw with the prostitution in the massage parlors 15, 20 years ago. So that, to sum it up, we have had discussions to create a similar ordinance for us to internally regulate the smoke shops, and which with the goal of hopefully deterring illegal sales.
Thank you, Chief. Steve, do you want to give us sort of the lay of the land from your point of view about how vape shops get permitted, how many we're allowed to have, where they're allowed to be, and, you know, some of the thoughts we've had about also addressing some of the concerns the chief has?
Sure, and good evening, everybody. So when the zoning regulations were redone and adopted at the very beginning of 2024, the commission, towards the end of the deliberation piece, decided to define vape shops and then, you know, determine where they should go and how they should be regulated. So that they basically kind of came up with a definition where anybody that's got 25% or more of their floor area or sales area dedicated to vape or nicotine products like that is considered a vape shop. They put limitations on how many vape shops could be. That would be regulated similar to what we did with cannabis establishments. So if you had a vape shop, you couldn't be within a mile of another vape shop, had some restrictions related to signage and, you know, different activities that could happen on the site. The tricky part, or there's a lot of tricky parts, I should say, with this. One of them being that first we had to establish who was in business prior to that new regulation coming into play, because prior to February, we didn't have a definition of a vape shop, but we knew there were plenty of businesses that were selling vape products. A lot of those businesses were selling more than 25% of their sales area were vape products. So they would technically be grandfathered in at that point. So what we sort of did, we kind of started out on our own exercise where we started looking at where these establishments were. We basically first like a Google search, and then we did a street sweep from all the commercial zones to see if we could pinpoint locations beyond that. Then we had subsequent meetings, you know, the chief was involved and they gave us additional properties. So what we did was we came up with a list that was our initial list of about 28, I think, plus or minus properties that may or may not be illegal vape shops. And we started looking at their permit history, what they were approved for, what they were selling. And we ended up sending out a lot of notices of violation to many of them. We've been actually having a pretty decent response from those folks. I don't have a firm handle on how many are legal versus, you know, or I should say permitted or legal versus illegal at this point. We're still kind of working out some of that because some of the properties that have come in have given us very, I would say, not floor plans that we really can't make a determination on whether they comply or not. They may have a floor plan that's compliant, but they may have signage that's not in compliance. So working our way through some of that now. I think the biggest problems for us, going forward with the way the regulation is currently listed is 25% might not be the right number. Whatever the number is, we settle on. I know Brian had sent us some research. I think Westport had done it through like a special permit process. No matter what we do in terms of a number, it's very tricky to go out. If you just think about all the establishments that might sell this, whether it's a gas station, a corner store, a bodega, a store in a strip plaza, you could have, way more than 28 or 30. So going in, inspecting these, making a determination on, is it 25%? Is it 20%? It's going to be very tricky. Another hard part is that these are just covering either shelves or wall space in an establishment. So it's kind of like, think about like a grocery store that swaps out products because they get a new product from somebody and they remove an old product. They just basically take product A off the shelf and put up product B. It's not like if somebody comes in, we had one on Wall Street, which was an easy one. We actually forced them out pretty quickly. They actually came in without any permits, and they came in solely as like a vape smoke shop. So that one was pretty easy because it was like, that's what their business was. Whereas you might have somebody who's got one small portion of his retail sales are vape or similar products, and they're selling food or they're selling beverages or something like that. So trying to kind of get a handle on how they fit into that spectrum of the retail sales is going to be something we would chase ourselves a lot. So I think from our end, in terms of changes we'd like to see, we could tighten it up to make any sales of vape products require a special permit use. The tricky thing is we don't regulate cigarettes that way. So that, at the same time, it would be nice if at the state level, cigarettes and vape products were treated equally. So we had the same level of oversight. It doesn't seem like that's the case at the moment. Chief would probably know a little bit better about those, how that's handled. So if that was done, that would help. I'm in favor of tightening it up as much as possible. And I think it might go beyond zoning, but we could definitely attack it from a two front way.
So one question we had, and then I'm going to open it up to the committee, was, we talked about taking it down to 0, as you said, so that if you sell any of these products, you have to go through this licensing, because it feels that there's some people who could have back office, like it may not be on the floor, the 25%, but there could be a lot in the back office or whatever. And it just feels as though you're always going to be chasing your tail about percentages. Is that just too hard to go to 0, Steve?
I think also the other thing, it would be good to get Brian's input on whether we can go like say 0. But I think if you did it, anybody that sells it, you could do it through special permit process. I don't know if anybody's done that to that full extent, but we could definitely look at that. I think because there's the two aspects, is one is like the public health aspect, and then the chief hit on the ones that are more serious in terms of the other things that these shops might be doing that are way beyond the law at that point. So I think there's definitely two major concerns on that front.
Other questions from committee members on this topic? Nora.
I want to really thank you both. This is super helpful. And I think it sounds like we've got a lot of exploration still to figure out exactly the right approach. But I mean, certainly my instinct, particularly after hearing from both of you in terms of what you're seeing, is that in many ways, this is comparable to an alcohol regulation situation and should be treated as such, right? Like there is no possibility to sell unlicensed alcohol. And I hear that, figuring this out at the state would be nice, but, certainly if the city needs to step in and stopgap this, at least until such time as the state reaches, some regulation of its own. And I'm I think it's very interesting to hear, Chief Walsh, that, the way that we handled this in terms of the massage parlors, I think sounds like it might serve as a really valuable precedent for us as to how to approach this. Because again, and I've actually, I had a constituent reach out to me who is himself a smoke shop owner who talked about his frustrations. He'd been in the business for a long time, selling only legal, selling specifically more paraphernalia oriented stuff that met you know, and his incredible frustration with being sort of pushed out by businesses who are not complying. And I do think that there's a really valuable space for providing a legitimate regulation for legitimate businesses who are willing to comply with the law. And I know, Brian, you had mentioned you've done some research as well. So I'm, you know, I guess I want to say thank you for engaging on this. I think I'm very eager to keep engaging and to really figure out the solution that kind of gives us the best power to support good actors and really remove folks who are not acting in the public interest from operating in the city. I'm really looking forward to hearing solutions and ideas, and also getting alerted. As we are aware, this can be tricky. Operating in the space, in the gaps of state regulation can be tricky, but I think it's worth making the effort to find a way to do it. And so, yeah, I look forward to working with you both on this. And thank you, Brian, for the preliminary research you've done. I'm excited to see that.
Great.
Lisa, just for the record, 7:41, 7:42-ish, we lost Heather on the call.
Okay, got it. She may come back. I think she might be traveling. Josh, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chief Walsh and Steve. This is a very worthy cause that I know that a lot of our constituents and a lot of residents have really raised alarm about from a number of perspectives, some having to do with aesthetics and just the sheer number of them, and some having to do, of course, mostly with the clear and present safety danger, which is obviously the proliferation of illegal drugs or illegal marijuana
used through these shops. I think that.
Usually I see them, so like if I see
that,
them,
Jeff,
like usually when we see them.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I mean, what I think is going to be a really interesting part of this process is not only working on an ordinance, and I'm thrilled that Lisa, you and Nora are taking the lead on this, but also, frankly, figuring out what we can do to best lobby our state and federal partners, particularly our state delegation, on how best to mitigate these issues. I know that there are there are other towns that are dealing with this as well. Steve, I'm singling you out just because I know you and I have talked about this before. I know Westport had recently changed its zoning regs, I believe, to bring down the new number of vape shops that could be permitted in Westport to 0, i.e. no additional vape shops. Is that something that P&Z is willing to consider? Not as an ordinance, I'm talking about an ordinance, I'm talking about an amendment to the zoning regulations. Is that something that's been discussed, or is that something that we should, that is worth discussing?
Yeah, we actually talked about that at kind of at the beginning when we came up with that 1 mile radius, because if like I said, we haven't figured out exactly how many are still illegal versus legal. So we should get to that pretty quickly. Once we have that, I'm going to guess that based on that 1 mile radius, that a lot of them are going to be eliminated as even asking for permission, even ones that are operating in that capacity. Now I can give you an example of down by off of Cove Ave, I think Liberty Square. There's a shop there that opened up before the reg change as kind of a smoke shop, vape shop. So that one we figured out was they're operating legally. So when you put the 1 mile radius around that particular business, it eliminates a big chunk of South Norwalk up into Washington Street, even into East Norwalk. So it's just a matter of going through, and then, you know, you have to pull all the old permits to see what they were actually permitted for, what they're actually doing in the shop. And then the hardest part is that 25%, because it's really, it could be 25% today and it could be 50% tomorrow and 10% next week. It's going to be chasing them around continuously, I think.
Right, and I know that Chief Walsh, that other officers and this is not the first time this has come up, and I know there's the sentiment is it feels like everyone's playing a little bit of whack-a-mole. And I'm wondering, Chief, if you've heard from other Connecticut police chiefs who have begun to sort of develop a sense of strategies that have worked, maybe others that haven't, if there's just been other things you've heard that may be helpful as we begin to endeavor in this process.
From my knowledge, there's a lot of police departments that are doing the same enforcement action that we have been doing. And to some of the points mentioned here, there are a lot of other municipalities considering internal regulations and zoning laws to prevent that. It's sort of like we're catching up to what's occurred in the past 3 years. And
Right.
we're not the only municipality.
Just so everyone's aware, not only Westport, who's already passed something, but my understanding is either tomorrow or the next day, Milford is going to be making a recommendation about amending their planning and zoning regulations
Okay.
to try and deal with this issue as well. Nothing formal yet. I'm assuming that'll come at the meeting, but that's the next one that kind of stood out.
Johan, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, no, it seems like, from what I've been hearing is that this issue, it goes beyond Norwalk, it goes into other cities and towns in Connecticut, and it actually goes on beyond the state and beyond the country. So I think whatever approach we decide to take, I really think our response should be multidimensional, right? We have the kind of legal aspect. We want to put together like an ordinance. We have the perspective from law enforcement, and we have the health component, because obviously teenagers, people are ingesting things that, could be laced with God knows what. So, and having said that, my question is, are we essentially thinking about using the special permit for the vape products in lieu of having to determine what level of percentage we want to regulate them?
Steve, I think that's for you.
Oh. Do you mind just repeating the last piece, if you don't mind?
Yeah, Steve. So I'm wondering
Thanks.
if like if the question here is, okay, do we decide whether to use special permits for vape shops in lieu of having to deal with percentages and identifying what's the adequate percentage to regulate these shops, if I captured it correctly?
Yeah, I think you could do both. So you could regulate, you could do it by special permits, definitely a much more strict standard. And it
Right.
gives the city the ability to say no for more, I won't say arbitrary reasons, but based more on, what they perceive as impacts to the area and the neighborhood where that particular property is. And then you could drop the percentage down to whatever you felt was necessary. So I mean, I don't know if I have a strong feeling on, to me, 20%, 25%, I don't know if that really is that any difference in that. I don't think so. I think it's just a question of, it's like you go into like a gas station and behind the counter, he's got a small display and he's got vape products there. That's probably a pretty small percent of his business. So is it just a matter of, and maybe those businesses are more problematic in terms of what they allow for sales versus like who they're supposed to be selling to versus who they're not supposed to be selling to, or they're just kind of like somebody asks for the vape product and they're not checking ID. I have no idea if that's what's occurring on that front. So it could be a matter of just anybody who sells any vape product is a special permit. That would definitely be the most stringent way to go about it, and definitely would weed out a lot of things, I think.
Okay, and yes, and so Chief, quick question. Just in your work, have you guys been able to collect any data on frequency of, let's say, of transactions, arrests, locations, any sort of thing that can be used to kind of inform policy, anything like that?
Yeah, we have it all collected in the
Oh.
special services. Yeah, we have every single operation documented. So I do believe there's one officer assigned in that division who collects all that data. So that's not a huge lift right there. We could get that within a day.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Of
Okay.
all the operations and case numbers and people's arrested and even quantities and pounds and
Yeah.
stuff. We have all that recorded.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
And Chief, while we have you thinking about this, and of course, I love the fact that Steve used weed and weed out people. So when we're weeding out businesses in this area, the question I have for you is, do these little, bodegas and the gas stations, are they, people you're worried about too? Like, as far as you're concerned, Chief, does the 10% or 20% floor product make a difference to you? Or do you think that this is just endemic to the entire industry?
Well, I think the question, you could go back to just basic human nature. If you give somebody a small window, they're going to create a bigger window out of it. So that needs to be considered. I've in my years of experience when it comes to law enforcement and in human behavior, if we don't clearly define exactly what we want and what we expect, there's going to be a workaround by the criminals, and and that's what they're doing now. So we have to just use that mindset to say, hey, what can we do? Because the THC products, the gummies, are always evolving. They're marketed like candy, they're packaged like candy. Some of the vape products are, the inserts for the vape products are. It's very hard to distinguish from a naked eye of a law enforcement officer what is illegal. When consumer protection does come down and assist us, we use special scanners that automatically reads the code in the back to tell us the level of THC in that product. So from an eye's view, it's very difficult. So from any product, from 1% to 20%, how do we know that first 5% is not illegal? We don't know. And I think that we should take precautions to encapsulate this. If we're going to write an ordinance, let's get it right now to eliminate all the possibilities in the future.
Thank you. Nora, you've got your hand up. Johan, I don't know if your hand's still up from before or, okay. So it's Nora's turn.
Thank you. No, I think you actually touched, Chief, on what I was sort of wanted to follow up on a little bit, just to, further my understanding. Again, I guess it comes back to metaphorically, do we regulate this more like we regulate alcohol or more like we regulate cigarettes? And my instinct is that we regulate it more like we regulate alcohol, right? It is an intoxicant, it has higher risks. I'm particularly concerned about the sort of off-label stuff, the stuff that we don't even know what it is or, what it might have encountered, right? I mean, there are, to me, there seem like higher risks. And given that seems like the approach, but again, I'm curious, far more about this than I do. I'm curious your instincts on kind of the model that we should be looking at when we think about how best to do this.
When it comes to modeling, I think that we should really look at what we wrote for the prostitution and the massage parlor, where it would be easy for us to, as a municipality, to determine their suitability to stay in business. And if we make it too confusing, because believe it or not, liquor law has a lot of statutes to it. There's a lot of subdivisions, and you could get lost in the weeds on liquor law. It's something to the fact that if we, by a certain standard, could prove that actor in the city of Norwalk, who is permitted through planning and zoning, is selling marijuana, and we've had a standard where we've proven that they are no longer, they violated their planning and zoning standards, so they're no longer to operate in business. And we were very successful in closing several shops in 2015 and 2016. When I say massage parlors, I was actually in that division when we did those operations, and we were successful in closing them. And they had been nuisance shops for years.
That's great.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Other questions from the committee? So it looks good. Well, thank you Johan.
Thank you, Chair. Just one more. Chief, can you give us a sense, or give me a sense of if have there been any fatalities because of some of the products these teenagers have possibly bought from one of these shops, or has there been just significant levels of harm to one's own body? And anything in that regard?
Not that I know of, but you have to understand is that right now, adult use cannabis, the state of Connecticut has gone to great extreme to make sure that the manufacturer, the supplier, the producer is going through lots of regulation to ensure that it's safe for consumption by adults. There is none of that right now. So we're broken down to capitalism, and they're getting unregulated marijuana and selling it over the counter at a cheaper price and at more quantities, at larger quantities. So a lot of the products that they are selling is unregulated, and it hasn't been verified by any body as being safe for consumption.
Got it. So yeah, so I'm assuming it's a matter of time before someone ingests something that's probably laced with something, and then
it's only a matter of time. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Brian,
well-
can I just sorry, can I just confirm, Brian, that when you're sending us around the models you send are going to include the massage parlor ordinance?
Yeah, I
We're
have,
Thank you.
not quite
Yeah.
ready for that yet, Nora. We're gonna go through a draft, before we take up time of the committee before. So give us like a couple weeks and then we'll maybe come up with.
Oh, sorry. I thought Brian had said he was going to send around some of the research he had done on places. So
it's quick. I mean, I already have, I have some ordinances, from other municipalities. I have the massage parlor ordinance that we did here. Whoever wants it.
you
I
can
was
send it
gonna send
around.
it to Chief and Steve, obviously, and Johan, because Johan's taking the lead on this. I'll send it to whoever wants it. So if everyone wants it, just let me know and I'll forward you what I have so far.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that we haven't come up with a first draft yet, so I didn't want people to spend a lot of time before we got through the first draft. But we're going to be working off the massage parlors and then also looking at what other jurisdictions have done.
I can forward my research to anybody who wants to start looking at it and get a better idea of what we've done with massage parlors and what other people have done in vaping and smoking, the vaping and smoking arena. I can send that out to anyone who wants it.
great. Thank you.
Yep.
Great. So assuming that there's no more questions, thank you very much, Chief, and thank you very much, Steve, for coming tonight and sharing your thoughts. We'll be
Yeah,
taking
thank you,
more of
Chief
your
and Steve.
time. We'll be taking up more of your time in the short term after we, probably in September when we sit down with you all to go through the research and then also the other things. And then everybody remember to put September 3rd at 6 o'clock into your calendars. Josh and
Yeah.
I are going to be spending the second half of that 1 hour is talking about complete streets, we hope. We hope to have another draft of that too. So it's all good. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everybody.
Johan, thanks. Everybody's in favor of that.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Nice
Thank
evening.
Night, everyone.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Night. Bye.